Why is it so easy to sell someone else's product or service, but so difficult when it comes to our own? Welcome to the Empowered Podcast, episode 91. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I'm your host, Ellery Wells, and I'm glad you're spending this time with me today. Today, let's talk about selling. Nobody wants to really think, oh, I'm in sales. We always have this kind of negative connotation or this negative idea of the used car salesman. I just finished reading the book To Sell Is Human by Daniel Pink, and he goes into this idea and explores this idea of why people have this idea of this used car salesman, of all these movies. Maybe you've seen Glengarry Glen Ross, or some of those real sales tactics kind of scam the consumer thing. But in one of my mastermind groups this past week, we talked about selling. And one of the members, she has been never really in a traditional sales role, never been, and let me back up actually. What I would say is a traditional sales role is being compensated based on a transaction. And I spent years doing that. I've always kind of considered myself in sales, even going back to when maybe I was at Sonic whenever I was a teenager working, flipping burgers. That's not really sales, but taking orders and seeing what else I could get people. I know that's a small example, but we're always selling something. Anyway, this person had never been in a traditional sales role, and another member actually makes his living right now in a traditional sales role, selling a product, getting paid based on that with a quota and those kinds of things. And we're talking about trying to build a business. We're talking about creating a product or a service that adds value to people and not really wanting to be in sales. The experienced salesperson knew how to do it, but he didn't really know how to apply that to his business. And the unexperienced salesperson just really kind of had this uncomfortable feeling about it. And we spent a good time talking about that in this mastermind meeting. And there's another person in that group who does not do sales either, but she does do sales for her own business, and she just creates value and accepts money for a product. So we're talking about this in this mastermind group, and I'm looking at ways that we can apply this to the podcast audience, to you listening to this. And I wanted to share a few stories with you. As we all know, I love a good story. I wanted to share with you two stories and a couple ideas and how you can apply a non-spammy, non-scam, or sleazy mentality to sales so that you can increase your sales or begin making sales for your side business or your main business and begin to see things differently. So what you'll get out of this episode is 3 ways that you can sell your idea without feeling bad, without selling your soul, if you will. How you can sell your idea, sell your service or your product, and feel good about it. And then also, I want to share with you this story that maybe will ease your mind and help you feel a little bit more comfortable about what it is that you do, the products that you're creating, the mission that you have for yourself, and how you're going about it. So let's go right into the story. Okay, I want to tell you about an architect named Sam. And Sam had designed the perfect house. And odd story for you, when I was in college, I decided that I don't know anything about architecture, but I wanted to design a house. I don't remember what TV show I was watching at the time or where I got this inspiration, but I wanted to design this house and maybe build it one day. Anyway, Sam, it's a fictional character, Sam had designed this perfect house, and all of the rooms were in the perfect place and the perfect size. And it doesn't matter where they were in my mind. What matters is they were perfect in your eyes. And no detail was overlooked, and the house was just right. The house was ready to be brought into existence. He had designed it, he'd laid it out, he'd made the blueprints, and it was ready to be built. But Sam's perfect house, with all the rooms in all the right places, it was never built. It was never actually turned into reality, and this is the story of Sam and his perfect house. One day, Sam woke up with sun shining through his window. The temperature outside was cool, and he could hear the birds chirping in the trees. And today was the day that he would put the finishing final touches on the designs for his perfect house. And today was the day that he was done. He was going to complete the design and be done. Because this project had taken him well over a year. He had gotten up early, he'd stayed up late, and he had researched for hours and hours, spending whole days at the library learning about all the latest styles, designs, and techniques. And he toured homes too. He would go to open houses and real estate events all up and down the coast just to see how real people were reacting to each aspect of every home. And Sam loved what he did. He was full of passion, he had talent, and he loved designing homes. And this time, after putting his dream down on paper, he knew he had nailed it. He had designed the perfect house. And honestly, this house really was perfect. The kitchen was designed for a true master chef. I think Bobby Flay would have been proud. And the living space was laid out to be both cozy and spacious at the same time. Even the back porch, which you know I love sitting on the back porch, the back porch was designed as an outdoor paradise. With its fireplace and shade trees, you could easily envision yourself spending hours out there on the weekends with a glass of wine and your friends and your family. And as I mentioned, Sam really had designed the perfect house. But Sam had a problem. Sam had fear, like we all do, and like my mastermind group had this past week. Sam had a brilliant mind for architecture and design. He had the willingness to do all of the research and get all of the feedback necessary to create this perfect blueprint for this perfect house, but Sam was afraid to tell anybody about it. Sam was afraid that no one, besides him of course, would think that his design was perfect. Sam feared rejection, and a rejection that, honestly, might not even come. And Sam also was leery of promoting, advertising, or marketing the design for his perfect house. He had never thought of himself as a salesman. In fact, he didn't even like salespeople. He thought they were always too pushy, that they were manipulative, and whatever you might be thinking right now, Sam probably would have agreed with you. But Sam knew. He just knew that someone would come and ask him about his design, that someone would seek him out and ask him about what he was doing. They would see his other work and maybe just ask if he had a design for an awesome house. It was an easy move from designing condos to designing houses, and other people would see that too, and they'd ask him, "What else have you been up to, Sam?" And Sam would respond, "I have designed the perfect house, and you should see my blueprint." But none of those things happened. No one ever asked Sam about his perfect house, and no one even knew he had designed it. You see, Sam could have built and tried to sell his house for $1. He could have built this perfect, beautiful, luxurious, cozy, yet roomy house for $1, and no one would have ever bought it because they didn't even know it was there. They didn't know it existed. You can be the best at what you do, but if no one knows you're there, you will never become all that you can be. At least in the beginning. If you don't market yourself and sell your personal brand, the beliefs that you hold and the things that you want to accomplish, if you don't believe in yourself and sell yourself, no one else will. Then, as a result, no one can buy or invest in you and what you're doing. Even if you don't consider yourself a salesperson, a couple weeks ago we talked about how to tell a story that sells in episode 89. But even if you don't consider yourself a salesperson, you are one. Every time you try to convince your kids to do something, you are selling them an idea. Each time you go to a job interview, you are selling a company on your skills and abilities and hoping they will buy your time. Every time I negotiate with Ashley, my wife Ashley, about where to go to dinner, we're each selling each other on the idea of the type of food that we want. We're always selling something to someone. And the world needs what you have. We need your skills. We need your talents, your unique take on how to do things, but we can't buy them. We can't even support you. We can't even give you encouragement if you won't tell us what you are up to. So in the end, Sam finally sought out the help of another architect who helped him and coached him, and together they successfully marketed both Sam and the design of his perfect house. And that's the story of Sam, the architect. And I think that story applies so directly to what I'm doing, what you're doing, what the members of my mastermind group are doing in so many ways. First, though, there is no such thing as a perfect product. You might love your brand new cell phone or your new computer or your new house or whatever it is that you just bought and you're ecstatic about it. But I'm sure there are things that you would change about all of those things. And if you're worried about not selling something and you love what you just bought, even though it's not perfect, give yourself the freedom to make an imperfect product or create an imperfect service, one that has holes. Maybe you don't have your entire marketing funnel created, or there are parts of the business that you would like to do or services that you would like to provide, and you can't do it yet, and that's okay. Don't let that fear that Sam had keep you, even though Sam's a fictional character. It's based on a lot of experience in interviews that I've done. So he's a fictional person, but real world examples. Don't let that fear that you and Sam have keep you from doing something. There is no such thing as a perfect product, and even if you could create this perfect product, nobody's going to know about it or be able to buy it or support you or encourage you or keep you accountable or share your product with somebody else if you don't tell somebody about it. And that leads me into how to sell your idea, your products, your service, your business cards, your jewelry. Oddly enough, I've met several people in the last couple months who want to start a jewelry business. You have to be able to sell your idea even if you don't consider yourself a salesman. So how do we do that? So how do we sell something if we don't consider ourselves salesmen? Well, we all have ideas, right? We all have products that we want to create or a service, and we would like to see those turned into a reality. And we want to make sure that these ideas are good ideas, right? We want to create good products or services, and we want to make sure our ideas don't suck. So how do we do that? And wherever you are in the product creation phase, whether you are at the beginning or you are ready to ship it, you can apply what we're about to talk about. You can apply these things to your business, to your product creation, and make sure you are creating a product that people actually want to buy. Well, a couple years ago, I was working on a product or as a project for a new website. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I've kind of scrapped that idea and taken what I learned from that I guess I could call it a failed product if I want to be honest. What I learned from that experience of creating everything in the marketing to go around it, and I've applied it to other things, but I wanted to create this thing. Won't tell you exactly what it is, but it doesn't matter. And I wanted to see if this idea was valid or not. I wanted to get this proof of concept to see if this was worth my time. And this principle will apply to whatever you're doing, whether you want to create a storefront or you want to create a digital product, membership site or anything like that. You can follow these 3 fairly simple steps to make sure your idea is worth pursuing, and going through this process will also make you feel better about selling it. So I'm gonna give you those 3 tips. So while I was creating this product, I shared my idea with some fellow bloggers, podcasters, a couple financial advisors, writers, counselors, and teachers. People from a wide variety of backgrounds and professions. And I asked them questions to help me understand what challenges they were facing. And again, going through this process, I quickly became convinced that this idea was not something that I could just let go. It was something that I had to do, and my idea was worth pursuing. And what I learned through that process is how to sell your idea without feeling like my mastermind member felt, about just kind of feeling sleazy and not really feeling comfortable with this process of selling. And as I mentioned before, we both know it, and I talk about it a lot, but it's kind of this undeniable truth that we are salesmen. Most people don't even realize it, and they don't always want to admit it, but it's true. We all have something to sell. And like I mentioned, the ideas of going to bed on time for kids, or the place where that you want to eat with your spouse or something, whether it's our time to a corporation, our books to a reader, a podcast to potential listeners, instructions to students, whatever it is, each of us has something to sell to someone at some point. And good selling is simply sharing your passion with the people who could benefit from what you know. So one of my favorite teachers, little side tangent here, one of my favorite teachers in college was, she had been, I think, a park ranger somewhere, and she was now teaching U.S. history. And she was so passionate and fun and energized about teaching history. It made the class so much fun. The following semester, I went to a different class. It was a different time period that we were studying in history. And it was a fun class, but it was nowhere near as fun as learning from the teacher who had passion and who had energy. And again, good selling is simply sharing your passion with the people who could benefit from what you know. So here's the things that you can do. So if you've got a pen or you want to write it down, the first one is get feedback. So the first thing that I did to validate my idea was ask close friends and advisors, my personal board of directors, if you will, for their feedback. And this is before I was really applying the mastermind principle to my business and personal growth. In fact, I think I was still working at Dell at this time. In fact, I know I was. And I asked these people, this is what I have in mind. What do you think? And I sat back and I listened. I pitched the idea. I had not created a product. I had not done anything to moving me down a direction that I would have to backpedal from. This was very early on in the stages, but I sat back and listened. I said, this is what I want to do. What do you think? And if you have an idea, see if it's worth pursuing before you spend a ton of time and money on making it into reality that nobody is interested in buying. And if you are reselling a product that already has a proof of concept, like I don't know why this came to mind, but if I was wanting to sell GoPros, I already know those are successful products that people want to buy. And that you don't have to necessarily go through this feedback process if you're doing that. But if you're selling your own product, if you're wanting to create an email course or a membership site or a digital product, you're wanting to write a book, you need to make sure people want to buy what you want to sell before you create it. And the good thing is, with this digital world in which we live, that's not necessarily impossible to do. You can throw up a landing page with your features and benefits and give an outline and take pre-orders, or you can test links at different prices and see which price gets more click-throughs. You can split test pop-ups, or there's so many different ways that you can do that in your business, and I'd love to talk to you about how I could help you do that. But there's so many ways that you can do that today that it doesn't have to cost you a whole lot of time or money or resources. Especially time is not really a factor, considering it could save you from creating a product nobody wants. So the first one, how you can figure out how to sell and convince yourself this is a good idea and feel good about it. Number one is get feedback. Number two, get more feedback. Now, before you say that's really just an extension of number one, well, I'd probably agree with you, but you can't get too much feedback unless you use getting feedback as a stall tactic to feed your fear of actually doing something. You could spend 6 months getting feedback, and you should have created your product 3 months ago. I don't want you to do that, but get more feedback. So number 2 is get more feedback. So the first person I shared my idea with wasn't on board immediately. And again, this project, I did several things wrong. Again, I'll chalk it up to a learning experience. But the first person I shared my idea with wasn't necessarily on board immediately. But after we talked for about 15 minutes, I was able to pinpoint his pain and integrate a solution to help him solve his problem and eliminate that pain into my project. So if you have this idea or this outline that you have gone and presented to people, and you have it at the point where you can get feedback, pre-production, you're in the design phase, you're in this blueprint phase, the architecture phase, like Sam. You haven't created anything. You haven't spent the hundreds of thousands of dollars to build the house. You've just designed it. So you're taking this blueprint, if you will, to carry that story forward. You're taking this blueprint and saying, is this bathroom in the right place? Is this kitchen the right size? Should the porch be bigger? Those kinds of things. And I took this first conversation and all of the objections and questions that he had and the needs that this guy had. I was able to incorporate those into the project and the product before I created anything. So I was still flexible. I wasn't set. I hadn't gone so far down a path that I couldn't reverse it, or I was wasting money scrapping the idea. And I literally asked, so what is something that you're struggling with regarding, and it was insert your super secret product there. So in step 1, we asked, this is what I have in mind. What do you think? In step 2, I asked, what is something that you are struggling with regarding, whatever the project is? So if you were talking about creating a co-work space, what is something that you're struggling with finding a place to work that's outside of your house? Or if you're wanting to create a product about finding passion and purpose in your life, you could ask, what is something that you are struggling with when it comes to getting up in the morning and just living with purpose? Whatever it is, you can fill in this super secret idea, fill in the blank at the end of the sentence. And then here's the key. You got to be quiet. You have to ask the question, step back, and let them think about it and answer. So my question was asked out of a genuine desire to learn how I could help this guy. And his response was given out of a genuine desire to have his problem solved. He had a headache, and he was wondering if I could figure out the Aleve or the Advil to eliminate this problem, this headache. And there was no hard selling at all, none. It was just two guys trying to figure out how to make a difference and improve a situation. And I applied the same principle, the same Q&A type, get feedback, get more feedback idea to this mastermind conversation that I was having with my members. I gave them an example, and I offered them a way to ask their questions and enlist the help of other people. And neither one of them felt like it was scammy or sleazy or even really all that salesy. But the way, if you position it right, the way that you do that can make other people feel like they want to give you money. And before we go into part 3, I'll tell you the story that I had told them. And this email blows my mind. It's still weird to me to even tell this story, but it's true. And I had heard of these kinds of things happening before I really started my online business, and I thought, that's kind of cool. But I got an email once when I started my membership site and launched it publicly. I emailed my email list, and I said, hey, this is something that I have created, and I want to give you a special Thank you for being a subscriber discount. And it's normally $34 a month. I want to give you the entire year for, I think, $100. So it was a big discount. It was a lot of value to these people. And I emailed my subscribers and said, hey, here it is. Here's the offer. Use this special link. I got an email back from this girl named Ashley here in the Austin area. No, not Ashley, my wife. She didn't email me saying thank you, but this girl, Ashley, responded to my email saying, thank you for the opportunity to give back. You've offered so much through your blog and your podcast. I want to support you and what you're doing by getting access to this membership site. I mean, that story seems crazy to me. Thank you, Ellery, for giving me the opportunity to pay you $100. And like I said, even retelling the story right now, it seems crazy. But when you're solving a problem that people legitimately need, and you don't go about it in, hey, would you like to buy a watch? Kind of this weird, sleazy, back alley kind of way, you're creating value for somebody, helping solve a problem for someone, and they will thank you for it. It's like, I just saw, it was a couple weeks ago, I'm really excited to see Terminator, but I just saw Jurassic Park. And if I love that movie, and I do, I want to tell people about it. And even though I'm not making any money, I'm not getting any compensation, I had no stake in creating the movie, but I enjoyed it so much, I want to tell somebody about it. And if you are passionate about your product, your service, the solution that you have, if you have the passion for it, that passion will bubble over and you will just want to tell people, especially when you see someone in pain. Because I like to use this analogy, and again, I like stories and analogies. Think about if you have a glass of water and there are thirsty people out there. They're thirsty and you have water. Come on. You have an obligation to help these people, right? And think about this. If you and I are friends, and we're friends, you can call me. I've given out my phone number and email address dozens of times on the show. I'd love to hear from you. We're friends. If I found out that let's say I was thirsty, and a week later, I was sick, I was dehydrated. A week later, I find out that you had a glass of water and we're friends, and you didn't tell me you had this water this whole time. You had a solution to my problem. I'm kind of going to be pissed off at you. And you have to see your product, your service, your solution the exact same way. You have water, and there are thirsty people everywhere. So think about that. So again, my question, my Q&A, get feedback, get even more feedback. Steps 1 and 2 there was just me wanting to figure out what problems were out there so that I could solve them. And if you do that same thing, and one of my mastermind members, she's doing it an absolutely perfect way. She's networking and communicating and asking people why they do certain things and why they don't do other certain things, and really tweaking her product pre-launch so that when she does launch, I know it's going to be successful because all of the groundwork and this feedback, that the groundwork that she's doing, or do you lay the groundwork? Or I guess you lay foundations, do the groundwork, and you get all of this feedback and all of this stuff, this pre-work that she's doing, she's only setting herself up for success. And that's what I was trying to do, and how I discovered what types of products and what features I would add to this service that I was about to provide. So number 1, get feedback. Number 2, get even more feedback. And number 3, tailor your idea to align with this feedback. The more people I talked to, the clearer my idea became. Like David slowly revealing himself to Michelangelo, the statue of David, my idea was beginning to take shape. And as you learn the needs of your target audience, the people who will eventually buy from you or hire you to work for them, as you learn the needs of that target audience, start integrating your solution to those needs into your outline. When you're formulating your business plan or your product launch formula, whatever it is, begin integrating the solutions to the problems you're hearing about in the feedback. Start putting those into the outline of your solution. If you solve a person's problem, they're going to love you for it. I mean, people, you talk about Apple fanboys and all this stuff. They're creating cool products that people love. And if you do the same thing, they will love you for it. If you eliminate someone's problem, they'll love you for it. And if you help a person reach their goals, they'll tell people about it. And you can do those things. You can do all of that with your product. And again, we're not really talking about selling. We're just talking about solving problems, right? And both of these things are good for your ideas and great for your business, great for your products. And every person I spoke to going through these 2 feedback phases, every person I talked to gave me at least one bullet to add to my outline and plan. And that's pretty cool. When I go in with a nugget of an idea, when you go in and you start talking to people and you have an idea, you have maybe it's just the tip of the iceberg or it's the first crack of the stone when you're carving your David, right? Even if it's just not all the way revealed or it's still a little bit of a concept, by talking to people, you will clarify the idea in your head and they will help you figure out the solutions. Now, just as a disclaimer, you have to have an idea of what you want to accomplish and how you want to do it before you go into these things. Remember, you got to have the idea, you got to have the outline. You don't want to go in and just say, "Hey, I want to blah blah blah," and it's not very clear. You have to be able to communicate your vision before people can critique it, but you don't have to have everything outlined and set in stone. So doing these 3 things, if you've done them correctly, and if it's not taking form, if it's not taking shape in the way that you want, maybe that's okay. Maybe your idea needs to be changed. But if it's not becoming very clear to you, get more feedback. So if you're doing this correctly and thoroughly, a large portion of getting your idea moving in the right direction will be done. You have validated your idea. You've gotten feedback. You've proven that people are interested in what you're doing and have problems that you can solve. And again, there's no selling involved. So here's kind of a bonus step 4, if you will, and it's to test this idea. So we've built this perfect house. We've put it under wraps and nobody came to buy it, and we have to get out there and do a little bit of promotion. We've got the idea, we've gotten feedback, we've gotten more feedback, and we are starting to firm up this idea. So step 4, if you will, this kind of bonus is test. Now that you've determined that your idea isn't crap, now maybe you sound a little bit harsh. Maybe you've decided that your idea is a pretty good one and you've gotten feedback from people in your target market. It's time to test it. And if you really believe in your idea, if you believe in your product, if you believe in your service, that these things that you're about to create will change the world for the better, it is your duty to share it. Imagine if Apple and Steve Jobs hadn't released the iPhone in 2007. What do you think we would be carrying around in our pockets right now? Would it be like the Motorola? It's not the Edge, it was the Razr. Do you think we would be carrying around, the next Motorola Razr that was super thin or something like that? Think about all of these products that we use on a daily basis. If they let fear prevent them from releasing it, where would we be right now? Or let's take it to a more fun level, where the world may not be all that different today, but what if the original Jurassic Parks hadn't been released? What if Michael Crichton said, maybe this book, it's kind of a fun story, but I'll just put it back on the shelf like Stephen King did with Carrie. He threw that book away, right? And his wife went into his office to empty the trash, and she saw it in the trash can. So we wouldn't have Carrie. And I don't like scary movies. I've only ever read one book by Stephen King, and it was his book on writing. It wasn't even one of his novels. How is the world different now that we have these fantastic writers like Stephen King who wrote Carrie, or Michael Crichton who wrote Jurassic Park, and Spielberg, I think, who turned it into a movie. All of these are life-changing things, and I think Jurassic Park was one of the first, if not the first, PG-13 movie that I ever saw. How is my life different from something as trivial as a movie? A love of dinosaurs, a love of movies, creative imagination, all those kinds of things. We don't know what kind of long-term effects our products or services will create. And if you believe that your product or service will change the world or change somebody's life for the better, you have to create it. You have to do it. And this is where things started to get really difficult for me back when I was when I was looking at this idea, thinking about creating this product, because this is where idea becomes implementation, where theory transforms into reality. And testing your idea will mean you have to put your creation out into the world for it to be judged. In the words of Seth Godin, you have to ship it. And that's a scary thing. It's opening yourself up to criticism and almost bearing your soul, if you will, when you create this product. Whenever I was selling servers at Dell, if somebody didn't buy, I would be kind of annoyed because I wouldn't get paid on it, but it didn't hurt my feelings. I mean, I didn't create the server. I didn't build it. I didn't design it. I'm not going to get my feelings hurt. But when someone doesn't buy my ebook, or when someone says they didn't really care for the podcast, or they cancel their membership, all those things kind of punch you in the gut a little bit. Whenever you create a product and put it out there for the world to read and download or watch or listen to, you're opening yourself up to criticism. So that's when the rubber meets the road. So again, testing your idea, while it is the next logical phase, it's a tough one, because up until this point, when you're getting feedback, you haven't created anything. You have an idea, and you have a lot of ideas. Some are good, some are bad. But the testing, that's when you make it a reality. And finally, we've got the feedback, we've got more feedback, we've got taking that feedback and applying it to your design, and then testing, and then finally you've got to ship that product. After you have done all of these other things, you have to do something with it. And like I mentioned before, real artists ship, something that Seth Godin says. And now that you've taken your idea, you have molded it based on feedback and tested it to make sure it works, it's time to put it into production. It is time to get out there and do something, to create something that you can show the world. And it's time to create and produce something that other people can buy and support you on. If you're like me, your brain kind of goes to the negative. Nobody will like this. Nobody will want this. Nobody will think this is a cool idea. It's not that great. This is just common knowledge. Think about the positive. Flip that negativity as hard as it can be. And I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you right now. Imagine the positive side of this. If I create this, I'm going to help somebody. I'm going to make money. They're going to have a problem solved. We're going to build a community. We can change lives by doing this. Think about that. And if you follow this process of getting feedback, getting more feedback, taking that feedback and applying it to your plan, testing it, and then shipping it, you can sell anything. If you do what I've outlined here, you can sell anything, and you don't have to sell your soul or feel sleazy about it or feel salesy about it to sell your product. And that's what you have to do. You absolutely have to do this. And if you have a product that will make someone's life easier, better, or happier, you have to ship it. You have to create that. And if you follow this process, you will rally support for your cause. You will get people to encourage you and eventually ask you, hey, when can I buy this? When is this going to be available? And you won't have to sell at all along the way. But remember the story of Sam. You can create a fantastic product. You can create the perfect product, even though those things don't exist. But no one will know it's there. No one will know that is available to buy if you don't tell them about it. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. Tell people about your product. Ask people what kind of problems they're having that you could possibly solve, and apply these principles to your own business, your own hustle, whatever it is that you're trying to do. And as I asked, the very first question of today's show, why is it so easy to sell other people's products and so difficult to sell your own? And it comes down to belief. It comes down to a conviction that what you have and what you want to do is worth doing. And for me, I fully believe that if you are working for somebody else, you're putting all of your eggs in one basket. If you have 2 jobs, you're splitting your eggs between 2 baskets. And our only comfort in those positions, and even when you own your own business, our only comfort comes from our ability to perform and our ability to produce results. So why not apply these principles and all these things that you're learning from my podcast, other podcasts, maybe from my membership site? Why not apply these things to your benefit in building your dream instead of somebody else's? And I fundamentally believe that. And I know I can help people who are willing to ask for it. And that I'm so convinced and so convicted that helps me get up in the morning, and it keeps me going all day. That's where I draw my energy from. And when you find that, when you find this purpose of creating the next co-workspace, the next passion ebook, the next marketing optimization ebook, whatever it is, it's going to be your fuel. And you don't have to feel like a salesperson to sell somebody on a fantastic idea. If you follow what we talked about here, don't be Sam. Don't create the perfect product and then stick it on a shelf just hoping somebody will come by and ask you about it, or tuck it away on hidden behind a bunch of landing pages, hoping SEO from Google will direct people to your product. Those things won't happen. You have to tell your people about the solution that you have, the glass of water that you're carrying around, and find the thirsty people out there and give them the water that you've got. I hope you're encouraged by this episode. I want you to go out there and do awesome things. If you're going to be at Podcast Movement later this month and you want to know about my meetup, I will text you. So text this number. Grab out your phone real quick. Send PM15 event, PM15 EVE. Yeah, EVENT, PM15 EVENT to 773-770-4377, and I will add you to the list. And I would love to see you in Dallas at the end of July, beginning of August. If you're listening to this way in the future, you need to get caught up. If you're not listening to the episode live, you might miss valuable information. Go to empoweredpodcast.com/91. You'll see links and resources for this episode. And if you want to get a trial offer for the membership site, you like this information, you want more tools, more templates, more access to experts and full playback of all the experts calls that I do every single month, there's a link in the show notes at empoweredpodcast.com/91. Thank you for listening to the Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Ellery Wells. We'll see you next week.